Good morning, everybody. Steve here from The Varied Life, the retired hobby tech guy. And today, what we're going to end up doing is we're going to be talking about the ultimate showdown, the Eryone X400 versus the Creality K2 Plus. Which one is going to win? This video is in response or addressing some concerns that people have had with the Eryone X400, which is a Kickstarter program from Eryone, which, if you don't know Eryone, I've associated them with purely filament, but they've been into the 3D printing thing for a little bit, and we'll get into that in more detail, and you'll find that's very surprising. So kind of eye-opening. So there's some things to take into consideration. And then we're going to look at the Creality K2 Plus, and really it's a comparison of features, bells and whistles, all of this stuff put together and making an informed decision on what you would purchase. Now, the Eryone X400 comes into the market claiming to be a production print farm machine. And they make great pains about this and saying, it's between the hobbyist and industrial grade. It fits within that niche. And, the 400 cube build area is the end all be all. And we'll talk about why that might not be the case. And in hanging your hat on a huge build size isn't going to win you any awards, and in some cases can actually bite you in the ass. Gigastorm, anyone? and really, the one caveat that I need to put out is that unlike the rest of the electronics world, you can buy a monitor, you can buy, phones and cameras and microwaves and all type of appliances. Those things will pretty much work out of the box. There's no dialing in. There's no settings that you really have to do other than the clock on your VCR that I don't think anybody actually set the time on. And I know I just dated myself. But in the realm of 3D printing, you have so many different variables that come into play with 3D printing that it's not a electronic device appliance type thing like microwaves or anything else for that matter. Hell, even my espresso machine, there are some settings, but really it's gotten to the place of where it's very minimal. And the amount of variables that you have been reduced down so you can make a great espresso latte like I have here. Yes, doing the vanilla latte. Love it. Anyway, we're going to continue on with this, and we're going to talk about this ultimate showdown and looking at features and bells and whistles. And let's just jump right into this. Okay, the first thing we want to talk about is a Kickstarter program for all of this, and these are some of the things that Eryone ends up saying about it. Theirs is a production grade Thinker X400 3D printer. And then over on the side, they have a blurred out Creality Ender 5 Max machine over here, which I thought was kind of interesting. It's definitely an Ender 5 Max. Build area 400 cubed, assembly, pre-assembled complete 3D printer. The kit, at least 1 hour to assemble parts and 2 people. I find that hard to believe, and I think that's a little disingenuous in the fact that there's people who got the Gigastorm, the massive 3D printer that kind of bombed, and people gave up on. Was it the Elegoo Gigastorm? Yeah, that was when I saw that come out. A little bit of a rant here. When I saw how that was built and I saw that they didn't, I knew that was going to be failure right out of the box. And that was, and you don't need that big of a build area. But yeah, saying that you need 2 people to assemble it, no. 2 people are nice, maybe, 3, 4, I don't know, somebody to hold the screwdriver as you're doing something else. But so I just kind of find it disingenuous that they kind of threw that in there, that you need 2 people. fully enclosed for consistent temperature control. And then they're comparing apples and oranges here. So on this machine here that is not enclosed, the Under 5 Max, which by the way in the future is supposed to have an enclosure coming out in the future that can be enclosed. But my question is, why in the consumer grade printer, why didn't you put the Creality K2 Plus that has an enclosure? Wouldn't you want to compare apples to apples instead of apples to rocks? You know, and so that's when I see these things and I saw the Kickstarter program, I was like, okay, this is sus. It's really kind of, you know, consistent temperature control. So does it have an active heated chamber? We'll get into that a little bit later. Of course, an open chamber. Again, print speed up to 500 millimeters a second with smooth surfaces. Up to 500 millimeters a second may show vibration marks. You know, we have talked about this in the past. When you have printing companies that say they can print up to this amount and have an acceleration of this amount, usually your daily driver speeds and acceleration are going to be lower. Okay, so you know, in trying to say that, you know, there's going to be vibration marks, where's the proof of that? And really, when this is again makes me doubt, because with a large scale printer, 400 cubes, that the higher up that you go, you're going to get some vibration marks. You're going to have some input shaping, and most units that are 300 and above for their build cube area, you're going to have input shaping that is going to address those issues. But the fact remains that the higher you go, you're still going to have some of that. You can't, it's just a thing. And in the 3D printing world, yeah, it's a thing to consider. But to automatically say that every other machine, you know, the open gantry machine, you know, the open machine without the enclosure is going to have vibration marks, making that, I don't know, stereotype, making that assumption, I find that lacking. Structural design, all metal frame with core XY architecture and 7 rails for stability, which is good. That's absolutely good. Cost minimized with a single linear rail using lead screw. The thing is that now you're making another assumption that every single other large-scale printer only has single linear rail screw, lead screw. You know, come on, really? That's what we're going for? I find this disingenuous. Here's another thing that made me go, wow, I think we're going to have a problem with this. Material compatibility. It talks about all of these things here, PLA, TPU, ABS, all that, glass fiber reinforced, carbon fiber reinforced. Well, that's PAGF, that's glass fiber reinforced. PACF, that's carbon fiber reinforced. So why are you saying glass fiber reinforced and carbon fiber reinforced if you've already had that? Again, I think they're just trying to draw the attention that the more characters we have on the screen, that will impress new people who are ignorant and don't know and say, well, look at all this. And it does carbon fiber reinforced and it does glass fiber reinforced. It's redundant is what it is. And then over here on the other ones, basic materials, PLA, ETG, TPU, 95A, and then that's it. Again, I find this disingenuous because you're comparing apples to oranges or oranges to apples or apples to rocks. It really doesn't make sense because there are machines out there that will print PLA, PETG, and TPU 95A, but then there's other machines like the K2 Plus that will print everything that their machine prints. Why didn't you mention that? Because what they want to do is they want to set themselves up. In other words, this is kind of a straw man argument in that if we throw up this information, nobody's going to check. The ignorant people aren't going to verify the information that every single other consumer printer cannot print what we can print in regards to materials. All you have to look to is a number of machines and companies that definitely prove that as being wrong. Design service life, 3 years. That's going to get very interesting when we talk about their past machines. Other ones, they say it's only good for a year. They're making an assumption. What about Prusa, where you can get, Prusa machines, you can get extra warranties, extended warranties for, 2, 3, or 4 years, whatever. You can have additions add on to that. But design service life, that's kind of problematic because that's really dependent upon a lot of variables. The material that you're printing, if you're printing with abrasive materials, that's going to put more wear and tear on your machine. So are you guaranteeing that 3 years? Or is it just a PLA? Or is it the PETG? Is it, so there's some things that make me go, stackability, yes. And on other ones, they say no, racks are needed. And they get into this by saying this is a production or print farm machine for the X400. And so stackability, okay, that's kind of a thing. But honestly, I wouldn't want that. And by researching, and we see all the videos of people who have print farms, they all have their own stacks, shelves, industrial shelves. Because of the rigidity and the stability of those shelves, minimizes the vibration. And so when you stack a couple of machines on top of each other, it's going to have an effect because one machine may be printing super fast and jarring movements or whatever. Another one might be printing really slow. Those will interact with each other, and so you're telling me that the input shaping of both of those machines will counteract all of that? No. What we end up seeing, for those of you who don't know, input shaping and vibration control and all that stuff, is your machine will go through a process, and as it runs through the gantry, X, Y, Z, and the whole 9 yards, and going through that process of calibrating and recording those vibrations of your unit on that shelf or desk or floor or whatever it is, it takes all that in, and then the input shaping, and it kind of counteracts that vibration. So the important thing to remember is that if my machine is sitting on the concrete floor, there's not going to be any vibration. There's going to be minimal vibration within that unit, so the input shaping isn't going to have to work as hard. If you put it onto a table, you're going to get a little bit more vibration from the movement of the table. And so that comes into play, but it can still make adjustments for that to get better prints. The problem is that when you have a machine on top of another machine that is operating, the vibration of the lower machine versus the upper machine, the one on top of it, one is shaking really fast, one is shaking slow. You're telling me that the input shaping of both of those machines are able to react in real time with varying degrees of vibration. That's got to be one kick-ass input with vibration adjustment thingy. That's incredible. With the little electronics background I have, I find that I'm highly doubtful. AI camera says yes, AI camera, and the other one they say no. This is the thing, the logical fallacy of making a statement of saying, no, other machines don't have AI cameras. But we're seeing a number of machines. If you spent any time on the internet and you weren't born yesterday, you'll find that there are a number of machines that will have AI cameras for spaghetti detection. Some systems even have 2 cameras. Some have LiDAR and cameras in the print head itself to look and evaluate the first level or the first layer and make adjustments on the fly so that you get better first layers. And the whole AI thing is like, well, artificial intelligence for what? Really, what does their AI camera do? And to make a blanket statement that other consumer machines don't have cameras or AI detection or LiDAR or whatever it is, I find that disingenuous to make such a blatant assumption when, again, if you weren't born yesterday and you've spent any amount of time researching different machines, you will find that this is absolutely untrue. So, software management, production grade management software, consumer grade management software. The fact is, there's slicing software where you can manage multiple printers. I mean, I guess you can have a better print farm management software, and there are software packages like that. But again, it's just kind of like, And what we're looking at over here is that on the Kickstarter price is $1,399, so $1,400, but that's for 500 units only. And the interesting thing about this is that after the Kickstarter, when we look down here, a massive 44% off the MSRP, which is $2,500. $2,500. And when we get into the specs, we're going to do a comparison of all these things, and you're going to find out that it's like, okay, I mean, you can still get some of these because there's only 67 backers for this machine on Kickstarter And then we have their other one where you can get 2 of them. There's 4 backers, and then they have one where you can buy 5, and there's 0 backers. And they did this 100 units only for $1,300. All of those are 100% backed and gone. It's just combined what we see with what they're saying, oh, ours is better than anybody else's because of these things. And there's blatant stereotypes, as I guess you could call it, or assumptions or straw man arguments to prop theirs up and say, look how better we are. Because no one has AI cameras. No one has AI cameras here. No one can print the materials that we can print, on consumer grade machines. We are so high and mighty. We look down on all the peons that can't print like us. We've come to, maybe 10 years ago, that probably could have flown, but with the advancements in 3D printing, FDM printing, pretty much everybody prints about the same thing. But we're going to see some big differences between the X400 versus the Creality K2 Plus as an example. So yeah, open chamber, fully enclosed. Why would you compare apples to oranges? So let's take a look at Creality K2 Plus, $1,500. So for the price of this thing, which is $1,400, but that's the Kickstarter price, and once the Kickstarter is gone, it's going to be $2,500. And for the Creality K2 Plus, the combo is $1,500. So if we just take a look at the K2 Plus without their CFS, that's $1,300. And this isn't the Kickstarter price. This is MSRP. So let's just stick with $1,500 and run with that. And we've got 350 cube area, step servo motors, 30,000 acceleration, actively heated chamber, which the X400 doesn't have, and we're going to go through. So, oh, look at that, dual AI cameras, the things that they said, other printers don't have. Oh, look, it's enclosed. And this is indeed a consumer machine. Interesting. Let's see. So you see what I'm saying is when they make these assumptions on the X400, it just, and this comes with the CFS, Creality filament system or multi-material system, whatever you want to call it, so that you can print different colors, different materials, continue a print by just putting 4 spools of the same material in there, and you can just run that thing until the cows come home. Power loss, restore print after power loss, all of this stuff. But there's a lot of cool stuff on here with the K2 Plus. Now, with that being said, every single I mean, just get it. Every single 3D printer machine is going to have problems from the time it's released to the public to the time of where it really gets fine-tuned. You're going to have firmware upgrades. You're going to have some people come through and say, hey, this needs to be changed. Sometimes there's recalls. Sometimes companies will send out parts and say, hey, we found that this was faulty. It's not working, so we're making it right. Shouldn't have to do that, but companies have done that. And so X400 is they're not exempt from that. Matter of fact, their product, their X400, which has been reviewed by a few people, including Aurora Tech Channel, has actually showed that, there's some big problems. And they're kind of backpedaling because they claim theirs was the biggest and brightest. And Aurora Tech Channel, in my opinion, is a very fair and well-balanced review channel that goes through tests, and they're very deliberate. They're very, they tell it like it is. It's not a bunch of hype. They look at the advertised claims and they do the tests and they show you what happens. And there's a number of problems with the X400, so which suddenly, and we'll get into that. Dual Z-axis assisted by 4 linear rods. Oh, what was that thing that the X400 said that they don't? Yeah. All of the great things that you have with this system, active belt tensioning system, automatic runout and sensor filament cutter. We're going to see some other things, and I'm not going to belabor the point, but you can look at all the cool pictures and the need numbers and letters and whatever. We can go through all of this. But it really comes out, we have some interesting information. And, of course, their CFS system. So with that, when we compare the X400 with the K2 Plus, it really comes down to, well, let's put everything on the bells and whistles and see what it comes down to. So, let's go ahead and we'll take a look at, what are we going to look at? We're going to look at this here. The contrast and comparison of the X400 versus the Creality K2 Plus. And this is going to be interesting because, there are some people that were asking, saying, hey, well, what's, I've heard of the K2 Plus, I've heard of the X400, but really what are the big differences and so on and so forth? Well, as I pointed out, the X400 in their advertising on their Kickstarter is a little problematic because it's not fair. It seems to be a little bit biased, in my opinion. What are the odds? Let me see in here. Let me see if I can make this a little bit smaller. I'll kind of move that down there. Okay. But we're going to go over some of these things here. So the X400 is basically $1,400 for the 100 units or whatever, 500 units. But the Kickstarter price after that is $2,500. The Creality K2 Plus combo is $1,500, and just the K2 Plus by itself is $1,300. So you're seeing a difference of about $1,000 to $1,200. We're seeing the print size 400 cubed versus the 350 cubed, and everyone seems to think that this makes it superior. It's a silver bullet, or one of the silver bullets, that this is just so much better than anything that's smaller than theirs. Really, when you're looking at 50 millimeters, it's like what, maybe 2 inches? Yeah, 2 inches. It's not that big of a deal, because when you get into actually reality in your printing things, let's say you're printing huge cosplay armor or a huge helmet or huge whatever it is, if you have such a huge build area and you print that thing and then you have a failed print, you're going to lose a lot of filament. So that's why a lot of people will cut down their prints or items that they're printing, their models, into smaller pieces, because if there is print failures, you're not going to lose as much filament. And the fact that bigger isn't always better, it's nicer, but with the higher volume of 400 on the Z-axis, you're going to get into more vibration. So obviously 350 is going to have less vibration than something that goes up to 400. Again, the input shaping and all that is going to come into play. But there are vibrations and there is movement in prints, and depending on how thick or thin they are, that will come into play. So, those are things that will happen and you need to take into consideration, which means that you will have to reduce your print speed and acceleration the higher a print goes if you want to maintain that high quality. So again, throwing out the high numbers of, we can print up to 500 millimeters a second. That really, let's deal with reality. Now, both of these, you could say that the, let's just go ahead and we'll just give a nod to the print size over there, for the X400, just because it's 2 inches bigger on each axis. Single head extruder drive. Yep, we've got that. We've got that. Nozzle type default 0.4, 0.6, 0.8, and 1. This, we'll give that and that. The same. They don't have a 1 millimeter nozzle for the K2 Plus, or at least they don't. But really, in all actuality, if you see how fat that type of layer, it's probably not related to a production print farm type of thing. So, saying that, we have a 1 millimeter nozzle, when you look at print farms and the products that they produce, you're probably not going to go to 1 millimeter. So again, it's just like, unless you can convince me otherwise. I haven't seen, if you go on Etsy, go on eBay, go on all these things, go to crafts fairs where people are selling stuff, I have not seen anybody use a 0.8 or a 1 millimeter layer height. It's just not there. Hardened steel nozzle, yes, they have it there, and yes, they have it there. Eryone says, hey, we provide you with a spare. Okay, that's great. You get let's put a little bit of let's put a little plus action there. And I guess, I don't want to give a plus there because really the 1 millimeter thing isn't really a deal. Filament, yes, they all print the same filament. When it comes to print temperature, they can go up to 300 degrees Celsius. When we get to the K2 Plus, it ends up that they get the nod for that. And when you get up to the platform, temperature is 120, which is a wash. I guess I'm not going to do the green. I'll just do the green for which one wins out. Then we get down here to the filament, and the filament, again, when we talk about the filament, they do all of these, and then they throw in glass fiber reinforced, carbon fiber reinforced, remember they said other consumer machines don't do that, but wait, look at all of this. The K2 Plus and a bunch of other machines will print the exact same thing with an enclosed machine. So again, this is why I find it disingenuous that the X400 advertises their Kickstarter in the way that they do. When we get to speed, it goes up to 500 millimeters a second. Again, the top speed, that's not going to be your daily driver. But with the K2 Plus, they're going to win out on this because it can go up to 600 millimeters per second. And if you go by kind of a rule of thumb, about 200 to 250, below that, that's going to be your normal cruising speed. You're going to get faster speed with the K2 Plus than you will with the X400. When we talk about acceleration, they're like, 10,000 acceleration. In the K2 Plus is 30,000. Going to have to give them a nod on that. When you talk about flow rate, you can have the fastest, most accelerated machine on the planet, but when you get to flow rate and how that filament is melted and flows through the nozzle, that is going to limit, again, speed and quality. So they can go up to 35 millimeters cubed a second, and the K2 Plus goes up to 40. So K2 Plus is going to get that. Print precision is just going to kind of be a wash. It's the same. Print platform, magnetic double-sided PEI plate, magnetic flexible double-sided PEI plate. I'm going to give this the nod because Aurora Tech Channel, when they did their review of the X400 with higher temperature filaments, what happened was that PEI plate peeled off And that is a huge, huge problem. For a production and print farm machine, that should never happen. Matter of fact, I have never seen that in any other machine ever. That is a first. Doesn't mean that it hasn't happened, but I'm just saying all of the machines that I've been looking at with large build areas, like 300 and above, I have never seen that happen. It happened with the X400. Leveling system, 4 independent Z-axes, okay. Full auto leveling, I think they have the same 25 point. So I guess we will give the independent axes. I think that's a wash. We get down to the display screen. We'll give the X400 a nod on that because the K2 only has a 4.3 inch screen. Does that really matter? Absolutely not. Because if you're going to be hooked up with your computer, you're going to be using this thing that's sitting in front of you. Really, the difference between a 5-inch and a 4.3 is not that big of a deal. Again, it's the motion of the ocean and what you do with it. It's not how big it is. At least that's what I've been told. The enclosure, fully enclosed, fully transparent acrylic shell. Okay, the K2 is fully enclosed, and you can see into it. It's enclosed, and you can see through the front. I don't need to look around the side because as a production machine, as Eryone says, at a print farm, I don't really need to see in the side. I just need to see in the front of what's going on, and if it has, monitoring cameras, I'm good. So we'll just call that a wash. Air filtration, this comes down to where they have a high efficiency activated carbon filter. But it's just kind of one little square like this, maybe about that thick with the activated charcoal. If we look on the K2 Plus, we'll give that the nod because they have 2 carbon filters, one on each side, and then they have the active heated chamber fan in the middle. When we get down to firmware, it talks about Clipper as being the end-all be-all, and the K2 Plus is a Clipper-based OS, so they took Clipper and kind of slapped some Creality stuff on there. As far as the major differences in that, we're not going to get into all the things that you can do with Clipper, so I'm just going to make that a wash. When you talk about noise levels, this is going to be very interesting because if you're a production and print farm machine, I don't really think that noise matters. You're going to get 50 to 60 decibels with the X400. People who run just the K2 Plus get it around 45 decibels, and according to their marketing material and information and spec sheet, it's 45 decibels. A lot of people are saying that the CFS is louder, and so that brings it up to like 50. So I'm just going to call that a wash. But again, remember, the X400 doesn't have a CFS system, so just comparing apples to apples, I guess I'll have to give the nod to the K2 Plus. Printing method, Ethernet, everything's the same, so we'll just keep that there. Monitoring camera. The X400, it has a camera, but it's only for monitoring and like maybe spaghetti and, detection of stuff that's on the plate that is not supposed to be on the plate. But I'm going to have to give the nod to the K2 Plus because it has 2 cameras, one for monitoring and one for calibration that is included in the head. So to adjust the flow rate and get that first layer and all of that. So you get a little bit more technology. They called this monitoring camera AI camera. Remember what we ended up seeing? Well, where's the AI part of that? It's a camera. It's monitoring. Auto runout sensor, both of them have that as well. Filament detection, of course, that's normal as well. Filament tangle detection, both of those have that. Emergency stop switch. K2 Plus doesn't have an emergency stop switch. You just pull the plug or turn the power off and you're good. It seems like Eryone is making a big deal about this emergency stop switch as if, we're a print farm production machine and, you got to have an emergency stop switch. You can flip the switch on the K2 and many other machines. I think they're making too much about this than reality requires. And for those of you who don't know, I kind of have some experience with 3D printing. helped out with the Colorado Department of Corrections, and what they ended up doing is they had 3D printers and they would print things, and inmates would work in the 3D printer. So that was my first introduction into 3D printing, and being an electronics guy, I got involved in that. So yeah, I know a little bit about that. But for print farms, look at print farms. You will see print farms with Prusa machines. You don't have emergency stop switch, with bamboos, A1s, A2s, with all kinds of different companies' machines, and really the emergency stop switch is not such a huge deal. So I don't know why they're making it such a huge deal. That's just my opinion. Input shaping, both of them have import shaping. Active belt tensioning, that is a yes. I haven't actually seen the active belt tensioning on the X400. I can't see it, but through the reviews of the K2 Plus and people taking off the back panel, you can actually see that it is a thing. So how active their belt tensioning system is, does it have motors, or is it just manually? Is it you actively adjust it with a screwdriver? I don't know. So we're just going to let that be a wash. Lighting is supported. The K2 Plus actually has two lights. You have one on the side and one in the front that shines down into the build area. Dimensions, you can see the dimensions there, and obviously the K2 Plus is a little bit smaller, and because it doesn't have a large footprint as the X400, is that a consideration? Is that going to be a deal killer, that one is bigger than the other, one is smaller than the other? No, I don't think that's a problem. We get down to weight. Product net weight is 58.5 kilograms. That is a beast. That is huge compared to the 35 kilograms of the K2 Plus. And I don't know if that includes the CFS system, but it's, plastic CFS system, it's not that big of a deal. But a huge difference in the weight of these two different products, and 58.5 kilos. Holy crow. What does that come out to? 58.5 times 2.2 equals 128.7 pounds. Holy crow, that's a lot. Versus the 35. What is the 35? 35 times 2.2. 77 pounds. Yeah, that's what I used to have in my rucksack when I was in the military. So yeah, is that going to be a big deal? There are some considerations for this. There are some pros and cons of each. With a heavier machine, you're going to have a heavier foundation, means you probably have a beefier structure in which everything is bolted to and the whole 9 yards. So that is going to reduce the amount of vibrations that you're going to experience versus a lighter machine. But a lighter machine, even at 77 pounds, and even lighter machines, I don't think that makes a difference to the point of where you would see any difference between prints. And if that was the case, there would be a lot of reviewers and YouTubers that would actually show and say, hey, well, this machine only weighs, X amount of pounds, and this one weighs, 50 pounds more. See, the quality of prints is so different, but we don't. Power supply, we see that, which is basically the same thing. So they both can handle 110 and 220. We have slicing software. They use Orca, which is good. Creality Print, Orca, and other slicers, so that's kind of a wash. Supported formats, STL and STEP, G-code, OBJ, 3MF, and STL. Languages supported is Chinese and English. So if you speak German, Spanish, French, Italian, Portuguese, Russian, Turkish, Japanese, Korean, you're going to have to learn Chinese or English. You're just out of luck. So I which is weird. I just found that surprising that they don't have the language support for this thing, for being a production print farm machine that is going to revolutionize the 3D printing world. In the world, they speak different languages. So, I'm being a little sarcastic and a little snarky here. But yeah, I mean, I bought things that, little electronic things that, are $20, $25 that have language support in all of those languages. A $20, $25 electronic doodad. it's a drop in the bucket, nothing. And they have better language support than the X400. So if you're from a different country and you don't speak Chinese or English, that's going to be a consideration. But if it's not, then it's not. So, but I would definitely say I'd have to give the nod to the K2 because of that. Oh, and for the lights, we'll give them the nod for that because it's got 2 lights and emergency stop switch. I don't really think that's a big deal, so that's why I'm not even going to rate that. The other interesting thing are some advanced features. Now, these are kind of interesting because power loss recovery. This is very important, and I would think with a production print level print farm machine geared towards production that the power loss recovery would be a thing. But with the X400, as far as I know, and I've looked for it, they don't have that. But yet, a lot of consumer machines, which they claim are inadequate, have power loss recovery. So you lose power during a print, it stops. When power is returned, you come to the machine, it says, do you want to continue the print or whatever, and it will pick up where it's left off so that you don't waste a lot of filament. I don't know, if I was doing a print farm and I had 10, 15, 20 machines, I would probably want power loss recovery. I don't know, just me. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. So, definitely the nod goes to the K2 Plus. Active bed tilt calibration, they say no, but the K2 Plus actually does. RFID tagged filaments, they don't. The K2 Plus actually does. Now, granted, that's using Creality filaments. So if you're okay with that and, you're doing your little print farm and you want to pay a little bit more, maybe you can get deals if you buy bulk with Creality. I don't know. People have rigged and done their own, hacked and made their own RFID tags for filaments. So in other words, they can buy third-party filaments and stick their own RFID tag that is recognized by the system with K2 Plus, but they don't even do that. So you're going to have to put in all that information for that filament, the color and what it is into their system, and the reel's going to be hanging off the side of the machine. There is no CFS system. You're just going to have to use what you have, and that's it. So yeah, CFS or multi-material system compatibility, the X400, no. Going to have to give the nod to the K2 Plus, but with that, the caveat is you can print up to 16 colors with all the CFSs that you can hook up to the K2 Plus versus the X400, which you cannot. So if you want to change colors, if you need more filament, you're either going to have to buy the 2 kilo or 5 kilo rolls and do it that way. So yeah, auto filament cutter, no. The K2 Plus actually does, so it actually has a tab, so when the print head goes and hits this little tab, as the tab goes into that, then it activates and it cuts the filament automatically. When you look at auxiliary fans, they have one on auxiliary fan with the X400. There's one fan and that's it. For the K2 Plus, they actually have 2, so I'm going to give the nod to that. And if you look inside the K2 Plus, you'll have a fan on one side, you have the active heated chamber fan in the middle, and then another fan on the other side. So 2. It's always good to have 2. So yeah, and active heated chamber fan, which we'll get into. Tool head camera for flow, no. The K2 Plus does. We talk about storage, 32 gigabyte, the X400, as far as I can tell, and I might be wrong, but I can't find anything saying that they have storage on the machine itself, but the K2 Plus does, so we're going to have to give a nod for that. Actively heated chamber system, the X400 is a no, and they claim that the bed provides enough heat, and in that large build area that you have is sufficient enough to compensate for any. It's going to be the same temperature everywhere, apparently. But the K2 Plus actually has active heated chamber. So, yeah, you can better control the heat for those different materials that require specific heat zones. We talk a multi-material system. Again, we're talking nope. And yes, this comes included with the price, so I'm going to have to give the nod for that. Even though, is it compatible? There's a difference between compatibility, and they don't have anything in the pipe for the X400 or even hinted that they're working on a CFS or a multi-material system. Here's some WTF items. Remove the nozzle cleaning strip. What the fuck would you do that for? This is on their Kickstarter thing. So they had the thing where their machine would go and would clean, kind of like the bamboo cleaning strip. You know, it would poop and then clean the nozzle, and then it would go, and they're removing that cleaning strip for a production machine. So now you're removing that. So now I got to take a brass brush and scrub the nozzle. Really? That's a step backwards in my opinion. Now maybe they replaced it with something else, but they didn't. It actually says they just removed it. I'm not sure why. The K2 Plus, yeah, it has that little cleaning strip, and you can see it. Psst, cleans the nozzle. Clean that tip. Keep it clean. And then when we get down to shipping cost, the X400 has a high shipping cost because of that weight, 128 pounds versus the 77 pounds. So I'm going to have to give the nod to that. And you know, again, when we're talking about these two machines, the Creality K2 Plus, you're looking at $1,500 for this K2 Plus and the multi-material system, or it's $1,300 versus the $2,500. That's like a $1,200 difference. You could basically buy, you could almost buy two K2 Pluses for one after Kickstarter price X400. Oh, by the way, we noticed that there was no insulation on the inside of the enclosure of the X400. I don't know. There's that. So when we look at this, we see a lot more going on for the K2 Plus. Now, that brings us to the point of where it's like, you know, we're running into this and we're running into the X400 and we're getting a lot of stuff going on and stuff like this. Let's get to some of the comments. Let's see. ADRT Playhouse says price is suspect at $1,300 and only in the maybe category. Over $2,000 is a hard no, and I would totally agree with you because that price is a bit crazy. $2,500 for $2,500 you could get a Prusa XL, and that's what. Taylor Swift, look at that. We have Taylor Swift. Why no Prusa? Taylor Swift, late to the party? That's absolutely fine. But going back to why no Prusa? Yeah, that is definitely a thing. Prusa XL is $2,500 with a single print head, and it's not enclosed, so you're going to pay a little bit more. But with the Prusa XL, you're assured that is going to be supported for many, many years. If you look at the Mark III, the Mark IV, and all of those iterations, later on down the line, many years, they will have an upgrade kit to go to the next level. And so I do not see anything preventing Prusa from doing an upgrade to the XL in some way, shape, or form. And that's a big build area as well. The only thing is you're going to pay a little bit more for the enclosure, which is kind of a weird looking enclosure, but you're assured that the company is going to take care of it. Now, with that being said, the XL did have a lot of problems when it first came out, which is absolutely a little bit more than what people expected. But now, after time has gone by, they've done a lot of updates and firmware upgrades, and they've really, tightened everything up, and the XL seems to be really good. Which brings me to my next point of, what about the customer service? What about the customer support? What about technical support for machines? If we look at a company like Prusa, they are huge on customer support and tech and keeping their customers happy. With K2, Creality, their past machines have had some serious problems in the past. And so I'm not going to give them a pass for that. Remember, what was it, the K1 or K1C, whatever, or K1 Max or whatever it was. There was one where they advertised an all-metal extruder. And I was like, that is an incredible savings or selling point, because they claimed all-metal extruder, that'll give you 10,000 clog-free print hours. And I was like, boom, that's what I want. And then we found out that Creality sent machines to reviewers, and the reviewers tore apart the machines and showed that it wasn't an all-metal extruder system. So what about that claim of the 10,000 clog-free hours? What tests did you do to get and arrive at that number? And now that it's not metal, is that number still good? I did some videos on that and the problems that Creality created with that, and that I was really suspect about, because then they changed some of their information, saying, well, now it's just it's not all, they took the words all metal out, but they still kept the 10,000 clog-free hours. So they changed their website after a while, and even longer after that, they did not change their Amazon information, because you could still see that on the Amazon listing as having all metal extruder, 10,000 hours, and blah, blah, blah. And I had sent messages to Creality and saying, hey, your shit's broke on Amazon. It's basically false advertising, because it's not all metal, and you're claiming it's 10,000 hours, but where's the proof? You said you tested it, but then you said it was all metal, and then it's not. So Creality isn't, they're not all squeaky clean either. So, but they're getting better with the K2 Plus, apparently. I don't know. But when we talk about support for machines, the other thing is track record. So just as you look at the history of Prusa or Creality or Bamboo, you will see that, hey, customer support varies and technical support varies from company to company. Some are really good, some are really bad, some are okay. It depends on when you contact them. Depends on the time of year, because a lot of companies are Chinese and they have different holidays than us, and so people get up in arms. Oh, I emailed them and they didn't reply back in 30 minutes. It took them a few days. Well, it's Chinese Lunar New Year, so that's kind of a thing over there, and as it is here in Korea. So with customer support and technical support, I want to address some issues like, did Eryone have a couple other machines, and how is their tech support for those prior machines? So we're going to take a look at that. Here we are at the Eryone site, and they do a lot of filament. I was really surprised, because I've heard that they did filament, and I knew that. I didn't know that they did resin. I do 3D resin printing, and I've never seen their products before. They got some accessories and some 3D insoles. That's kind of a weird thing to sell, 3D insoles, huh? But then they have 3D printers. So I was like, oh, good. Maybe we can get a look at their past machines, and we can get a sense of, what are they like? What are the ratings on these things? And just to get a look and see what we have. So what they end up having is we've got a Star One FDM 3D printer for $149, basically $150. They've got a 3D resin machine, $1,800. Good Lord. And no ratings on those. And then we have the Eryone ER20 3D printer from $110. It's got 10 ratings, and it's 3 out of 5 stars. My warm fuzzy just kind of went away. In all honesty, when Eryone, based off of just their Kickstarter, they're all about production. They're all about filling that gap between the consumer and industrial printers, and filling that niche with production print farm machines. And so obviously customer support and technical support is going to be a huge thing, and they should probably be well versed in that. They should have a couple, some machines in their past that have done wonderfully. but I'm not seeing it here. I'm seeing one machine has 0 reviews. Let's just click on that and just kind of look over this. Yeah, open gantry, bed slinger. Okay, yeah. 220 by 220 by 250. So it's just kind of, just kind of a, it is what it is. It's just a little machine and it goes and manual leveling. Okay, run out sensor, which okay, that's just basically a switch. Okay, and no reviews. So yeah, I don't know what can't say anything about that because apparently not enough people bothered to leave a review, or they couldn't find anybody to leave a review for this machine. But if we go to the Eryone, the ER20, which used to be $360, is now $250. Auto bed leveling for the beginner, built in 15 minutes, easy to use. Yeah, just kind of the regular bed slinging. Got some fan action there, some just kind of Barney basic. And we'll go over some of this. Kind of the same stuff. Printing, auto leveling, power failure resume feature. Seriously? Their rinky-dink machine that has 3 out of 5-star review has power failure resume feature, but their X400 does not? Wow. Little $250 machine, but Z-axis height marks, that's not really a thing. I don't really care about that. Sensorless homing, okay, whatever. Glass bed, oh, okay. Yeah, it just, reviews, oh, you can click the reviews. Let's take a look at the reviews. We got 5 reviews at 5 stars. We got 1 review at 3-star and 4 at 1 star. Easy to use and now using them for 3 years. So this has been out for 3 years. Looking forward to a new model. Yeah, that didn't happen. I bought 10. This is the best deal ever. Bought 10. I never received their order. Ooh, that's very problematic. I've had to change the plate several times. The print takes ages, not very good filament, not being pushed in properly by the cog. Printer is super. I'm new to this world, and I have to admit it's really simple to print something with good quality. Thank you very much for this, Jewel. Some of the wording in this sounds odd. I don't know. It's just me. I own 2, this one, and older, larger model. I think this one is the larger. They only have the 2 machines, and the other one doesn't have any reviews. I've explained the auto bed leveling is nice. Here is a pic of the item printed on. You can see it is bad. Please let me know what I need to do. Horrible. I'm begging you. Please buy anything else than this printer. Support is non-existent. Eryone has basically gave up on this thing. You will encounter issue after 2 months. Good printer. Awesome prints. Okay. I own one of these printers. They don't even manage to print anything. Printer wastes a lot of resources. It could have been put to, yeah, just. But the fact that you get 3 out of 5 stars for a machine, and the other machine doesn't have any ratings whatsoever, that gives me a little bit of pause when we're talking about technical support. I've gone online and did some searching, and I found that some customers were really dismayed at the lack of technical support for their machines, and I couldn't find anybody and it was like 3 or 5 years ago. So when you start going through the information, like the one guy said, of 3 years, there's some other information that says, when these were put out. So it's hard to nail down how long these have been out, but at least 3 years. And yeah, like I said, it's just very, very interesting on what we look at in regards to Eryone and their previous printers. and their LCD or their resin printing machine at $1,800. Let me just do a scroll moment here. Let's take a look. I might as well, because I do resin printing, so this kind of interests me. 8K, 10-inch 8K mono LCD, 10 by 10-inch, 10.1-inch print volume, light source, Raspberry Pi motherboard. Okay. I'm not really seeing anything except for the flexible print platform, but at $1,800 and the things that you can get today, that is like crazy. That is so overpriced, it's not even funny. That is just insane. Does it have any reviews? And it doesn't have any reviews. Wonder why. So, yeah. So you can see why I'm a little suspect based on a number of things. One, how they present the other consumer brands and saying that they can't do certain things when a lot of consumer machines do. Comparing apples to oranges. Well, we're comparing our enclosed machine to machines that aren't enclosed. Well, that's not a comparison at all. It's a straw man argument, and as we went over all that stuff. So, yeah, I just find it very problematic with some of these things. And the whole thing of the insoles. Should we take a look at the insoles? Let's take a look at the insoles. Might as well. Let's take a look. 3D insole. And there's no ratings on that either. We'll shop now. Why we make 3D insoles. Trim to fit. Comfortable. TPU. You can make your own. Personalized, 3D printed. But there's no reviews. So I don't know how many they've actually sold, if they sold any at all. At least they got the sizes down there. But and our customers say, and they got some people there, but I don't, other than these three here, which you can't tell if these are real people or not, Vanessa Elmore, and it's a guy's picture. That's a Vanessa. Come on. What you talking about, Willis? Really? Let's take that picture. And what we'll end up doing is we'll take a look and let's see if we can do a Google image search. Google Images. Okay. And just because my desktop is really messy, I don't want you to go through all these things. Well, I guess I could do this. And what we'll end up doing is we'll throw that on there. The picture of, oh, look. Look at that. The picture that they use for Vanessa, who has had foot problems and bought their, and gives this glowing thing. I regularly work, TPU filament, 10 hours a day on my feet. I'll stick with this brand. And they're using a copy. That's not Vanessa. That's a model. That's been used in different places. Definitely not a Vanessa. Wow. Maybe we should do an image search on Stephen A. So yeah, let's take a look at this. We'll take a look at Stephen's picture here. And we'll go to the Google search. And we'll do that. And let's take a look and see if this comes up as being a, well, look at that. we ACGIT Arab Consulting. So they used a picture from an Arab consulting, and this one is Russian. What? I don't think that's Stephen. Ah, wow. Let's see. What does that one do? So Eryone is using pictures of not real people. Oh, look, there he is. There he is. And then there it was on the Eryone. So those two pictures there are pictures from somewhere else. And they're claiming that this is Vanessa when obviously it's a guy. And this Stephen A. in his glowing review of these insoles. Wow. Wow, look at that. Yeah, there. Wow. I am blown away. That is absolutely insane. Oh, yeah. They couldn't even spell insole correctly. Yep, stock image. So that tells me that they fabricated that positive review. And as Lorianne Brown Art says, definitely shady. Yeah, we're going to throw some Slim Shady on there, and that is just crazy. Ah, wow. I don't really know what to say about that. Eryone, Lucy, you have some explaining to do. I mean, oops. So Eryone has customers that left glowing positive reviews, and you use stock photos that can be found on different websites, stock photo images. And then even the one which was the guy. Seriously? I can't believe they did that. And that's definitely not a Vanessa. And that's a stock image. And that's a stock image. I mean, if you're going to lie and you're going to make something up, at least get a stock picture of a woman. So now can you understand why I'm a little suspect when it comes to Eryone with their X400 claims and saying they're the best thing since sliced bread with their machine, even though it doesn't have a number of features that other machines have with a slightly smaller build area. Yeah, that is huge. Holy crow. You should AI check the text. Yeah, that could probably be. Oh, wow. That would be interesting. Let's see. Not exactly how to do that, other than it just comes up with the Eryone. So, yeah, Eryone. Is that how you pronounce it? Check that. That would be really interesting. But the fact that they're using stock photos for their positive reviews on their insoles, those two are stock images, and that's obviously not a Vanessa, and that's not Stephen A. That is insane. So that's why when I read their Kickstarter thing and I looked at their website, and now that we've all, thank you, that we check these things out and we dig deeper, we're finding some serious problems. Because when you have to make reviews, positive reviews for your products, that means you're lying. And so if you're lying about simple reviews, what else are you lying about? And the way that you presented the information on the Kickstarter, oh, nobody prints the materials that ours does. And that's just even if you were born yesterday and do a 5-minute search on the internet, you will find there's a ton of machines that print all of the materials that your machine prints. But other machines have active heated chambers, so they actually do it better. So, wow, that is actually crazy. That is going to be interesting. I think I'm going to post this video on the X400 site and see what happens because I'm a part of them. Lorianne Brown, I will definitely stick with Creality. The under 5 Max is my choice for large volume. And that was a consideration for me, and it's $770. It looks like a great machine. The only thing that with the under 5 Max that concerns me is that it's a brand new release. And of course, every new machine is going to go through some bumps down the road. But when we're looking, it ends up, let's take a look at this. At the under 5 Max, that's the button I want to push. And there it is, $769. Okay, I was off $1. But we end up seeing here that, and isn't it funny that picture that they use is what Eryone used on their Kickstarter. See, Creality, green button. Creality, green, they took this machine picture and then they blurred it. So what are we looking at when we see this? Print to the max, blah, blah, blah. 700 millimeters per second speed, acceleration 20K. So even that's better than the X400. Minimal downtimes, flow rate, blah, blah, tailor-made, print farm. What is I forget the build area. Build volume is 400. So it's a 400 cube machine as well. It's just not enclosed, but they did talk about with an enclosure is going to come out sometime in the near future. So that's, you could start off with that. It doesn't have an actively heated chamber, but, it is what it is. But that is definitely something to be considered. Now, and again, there's going to be some bumps in the road with any new machine, firmware upgrades and dialing it in and all that stuff. But, $770 for the Ender 5 Max versus $2,500 for the X400 after Kickstarter price, or the, what was it, the $1,400 for the Kickstarter price, and that's limited to a certain amount of units. I don't know. Lori talks about she prints in PLA, so she doesn't need an enclosure. So get what you need and run with it. In all honesty, will I be printing things that are not PLA? Maybe. But I've been into enough hobbies and activities where I get an entry-level thing, and then later I find out I want to do more, and I have to upgrade or buy more. And so I figured buy once, cry once, and that'll be good. So, it's even the Ender 5 Max has got the status indicators for print farm, so you can have a visual cue of whether the machine is up, down, or printing or whatever. And we don't see that on the X400, which is kind of an interesting thing at $2,500 at the after Kickstarter price. Kind of crazy on what we're seeing here. But with that, it's kind of crazy. So the comparison of the Eryone X400, the specs, the bells and whistles, and them banking on certain things like huge build area, 400 is better than a machine with a 350 cube build area. Really, you want to cut down your parts so that if you have print failures, that you won't waste a lot of filament. So really, the 2-inch difference, I don't think that's going to be a deal killer in regards to a lot of things. And if you don't have print, power loss and restore after power loss, continue printing on the X400, which is supposed to be a production print farm machine. They even had it on their like $150 or $200 machine, whatever it was. Excuse me. Yeah, I just, and all of the other things that we just looked at and found out with fake reviews, yeah, that just rubs me the wrong way. That really rubs me the wrong way. So now, is it possible that they turned over a new leaf and they got new people and this X400 is going to be the next best thing to slice bread? Yeah, there's a possibility of that. When we look at the history of their other machines and lack of support and lack of ratings, yeah, just kind of doesn't give me a warm fuzzy. So just based off the specs alone, I would have to go with the K2 Plus. But in reality, I don't know. Time will tell. Time will tell. But honestly, in my opinion, I think the X400 is way overpriced. And the after Kickstarter price, I don't think that's going to continue. I think after their Kickstarter, excuse me, I think their Kickstarter is a cash grab thing. They provide a printer. Hopefully they'll support it. But really, in all honesty, who's going to buy that when you can get an Ender 5 Max? Who's going to buy that when you can get a Prusa XL for the same price and pretty much be guaranteed technical support? Yeah, a lot of moving parts, a lot of different variables come into this, but that's the reason why I have problems. I have trust issues to begin with. So, let's see. Here's a question. Lorianne says, I do not see Eryone's printers on Amazon either, which makes me wonder. Their PLA is, but no machines. That's a good point. And I looked up on Amazon there, and if you look at the K2 Plus, that isn't on Amazon as well. Now, for me, because I live in I retired and I live in Korea. I'm an American expat in Korea. Amazon will not ship certain items because they're oversized to my location. The K2 Plus, with that being said, has recently been released, and it takes a while for certain items to go from the manufacturer and selling them on their website to getting them onto Amazon. Eryone, does Eryone have anything on Amazon? Any machines? Eryone. Let's see, we got their filament. Let's put 3D printer. And that would be no. So let's go back here. So we do the Eryone. See, I got my address. Send me a bunch of money. Creality, the K1C. But yeah, there's no Eryone 3D printer that pops up on here. So, and if we look at, let's see, K2 Plus. K2 Plus 3D printer. Nope, that doesn't come up either. It's here. K2 Plus combo. Wow. $17.59. So it's a little bit more because you're doing the whole Amazon thing, and I totally get that. This one is for $16. Let's click this one for $1,700. Free delivery to Republic of Korea. So they'll send it to Korea. Wow. But I can buy the same thing here in Korea from a store that I can get support from with that. So, yeah, that's a ComGirl store. So, yeah, they will ship that to Korea. Wow. So that's a first. That's kind of interesting. But, yeah, we don't see Eryone on there. Interesting. Which one is that sold under? That's the actual Creality store. So, wow, we found out that, yeah, the Creality store is doing their thing. It is on the Amazon side. Okay. And the K2 Plus, if you just get it by itself, okay, this item can't be shipped to your selected delivery location. Choose a different one. But if I get the K2 Plus combo, it will deliver it? It actually does. That is odd. I can't just get the K2 Plus by itself, but I can get the entire combo system. I don't know. It's a weird thing. And it takes a little while. It would take, if I ordered this, usually something that I order from Amazon to come from wherever it's at to Korea, you're looking at about 2 weeks. Whereas when I was living in the United States, you're looking at, a few days. So yeah, I'm not going to order this and wait 2 weeks when I can shop and buy it locally here in Korea and get it delivered within 1 or 2 days. Exact same thing. And the price is about the same. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. Now I'm just kind of rambling and show you what... let me move this. Wow, it's on the Amazon... Let's see. Yes, I know. K2 Plus. And we will go to shopping. And Naver is kind of like the one of their big shops here. But they do have the K2 Plus. And what we end up with is 2,265,700 won, which that's the company that I'm going to be using. And if we look at that, so let's clear that. So 2,265,700 won. I know that sounds like a massive amount of money, but the exchange rate is 1430. Dang it. 1430. So we're looking at, wow, 1584. So I can get it cheaper here on Naver than I can off of Amazon. Okay, so that's cool. I am so glad to know that. That is awesome. So anyway, yeah, that's what we got going on. Just wanted to address some of those things. And this has been an interesting video comparing the X400 versus the K2 Plus with specs, bells, whistles. We dug a little bit deeper into the Eryone and we found using stock photographs and fake positive reviews on the Eryone website for their insoles. That's highly problematic. And then we saw the straw man argument and the assumptions and how they advertised on their Kickstarter that their enclosed machine does so much better than machines that aren't enclosed. Seriously, apples to oranges, that's what we're doing. So yeah, again, that makes me suspect. And I wanted to like the X400 until I started digging and researching. But again, ultimately, time will tell of whether we're going to get good customer support out of Eryone for their X400 or whether it's going to go the same route as their past machines, which rated 3 out of 5 stars and no ratings on their other machine. That's why I think personally, because I'm not a trusting person, I think this is a Kickstarter cash grab. And they're going to make a bunch of money off of that, and they're not really going to care after the Kickstarter because it's way overpriced and you have so many other different machines at that price point that you can get much better support, you can get more bells and whistles, and that's just that's what I think. That's my opinion. And if you have a different opinion, I totally understand. Eryone, if you're watching this video, which you might, I don't know, maybe not, probably getting taken down from their Facebook page, but I will post this video. But if you have a different opinion, then that's absolutely fine. I just find there's some problems that need to be addressed, like the insole reviews and the ratings on the machines, and can you tell us what steps that you have taken to give good customer support for your X400, tech support and the whole 9 yards. There's something else I want to go over when we were talking about support. And what was that? That was where is it? Let me look up real quick and I'll see if I can find something, because Creality has user manual. Okay, let's see if this is it. They have a wiki series page that has a ton of stuff on here. So they have their K2 series, with all of their stuff, Creality Cloud, owner's manual, a ton of information for their, let me see, where was it? I saw guide, general videos, and they've got a ton of stuff in regards to user guide. So yeah, they've got unboxing, printing, refill, switches, calibration, load, unload, third-party slicing software settings. They've got troubleshooting and all of this stuff here, which is a great resource for their machines. I mean, that is a lot of stuff. So, parts replacement guide, service tutorials, all of this stuff, firmware flashing, replacing all the different things here, the parts list, that is awesome. And the question that comes to mind is, does Eryone have that for their X400? No, I can't find it. Doesn't mean they won't have one, but currently, as the time of this video, they don't have that. So again, that's something else to consider. And this whole video is just to make an informed decision before you shell over your hard-earned money. Could the X400 be a home run smack right out of the park? It absolutely could. Have my doubts, but it could. Could the K2 Plus nosedive and be one of those machines where it ends up just being not supported? Possible, but I highly doubt it. So anyway, that's what we got going on. Just an interesting information that we found. This totally went a different way than what I thought, especially when we started doing image searching. So anyway, this is it. If you have any questions, I have an email address down there. Printing, resin printing, hobby stuff, expat here in Korea. I answer questions, answer every single email, even if you just say hi, and the crazy people too. With that, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. I would appreciate that. And if I've so filled your heart with some type of entertainment or information, you can buy me a coffee with the link down below. With that said, you have these people here that are on my most much respected list because they bought me coffee. And I would appreciate that as well, but it's not required. But I will say that the coffees that people buy me, I buy other people coffee, so it's kind of a wash. But whatever little money I do get from buying coffee, I put it back into the channel. And like with the resin printing stuff and the models, it keeps me buying resin, doing models, doing the painting videos and things like that. And being retired, I have some time to do that stuff. So I buy coffees for people too. Some people don't like it. If you don't like it, then don't do it. Just give me a like and subscribe. That would be the best to work with the YouTube algorithm, and I'm going to try to get put in for my AdSense and do all that stuff and try to get monetized, and we'll see how many nickels I can make off of that. And again, that will be poured back into the channel. So looking forward to more videos. Like, subscribe, got to do that. And with that being said, my latte is now cold, and it's disturbing, like some of the information that we found out. So we will leave you with that, and we'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching. Peace. Wow. Stock photos and fake.